I'd like to begin our session today by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which our presentation has been filmed. The Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains and the Widjabul people of the Bundjalung Nation. I'd also like to pay my respects to the elders past and present and to any elders who are attending this presentation. Our next presenter, Maria Taylor, is the Manager of Education for Nature Play South Australia. Maria brings her passion for education and inspirational approach into the integration of nature into the school curriculum and outdoor classroom activities. I really enjoyed participating in this presentation with Maria, and the school teachers from West Garth Primary School who also participated gave great feedback. I hope you find this presentation enjoyable and find inspiration that you can take into your daily practice.
Good afternoon everybody, my name is Maria Taylor and I manage the education services for Nature Play SA. We're based in South Australia, in Adelaide, and there are some other nature play organisations around Australia. The first was in Western Australia, and we now have Nature Play Canberra, Nature Play New South Wales. There's a bit of a voice there. Nature Play Queensland, and a few other connected kind of organisations in other states. So what we're going to do today is I'm just going to guide you through some of the activities that we do here with teachers in looking at just how to get started in using the outdoor environment for everyday teaching and learning. What I'm going to do at certain times is ask you to go off and find some things and bring them back and create and share. And other times I'll ask you to pair up with someone and talk through and share your ideas. And there will be a bit of a PowerPoint that I will show to frame our learning to start. So make sure you're in a comfy spot. I'm just going to flick a couple of slides to share something with you to frame the start of our day, and then we will go from there. Okay, so we're looking at teaching and learning in outdoor environments, and that could be any environment wherever you are. It's not dependent on a particular kind of type of environment, although by the end of this, I hope you have a bit more of an idea about the kinds of environments, the things that really provide a great inspiration for teaching and learning. So for us here at Nature Play SA, the definition of nature play, I'll just flick something up on your screen, just have a read of that. And I'll just give you a moment to have a read and then see if we can pull out a couple of key words.
So sensory jumped out for me.
Yeah, and they're all fantastic words. There's so much, and any one of those is when you watch children play and learn in these spaces, it is that having that uninterrupted, extended periods of time where you really start to see what they do in those spaces. That is really powerful. It goes a little further than what can be achieved often in just their play in recess and lunchtime. Teaching and learning spaces does need to be given time. But you know, the sensory, the very open-ended nature of environments is where we start with saying there's a lot there for children. Now, nature play 20 years ago wasn't a thing. There was no nature play movement. You would have, if you talked about going outside and climbing trees and playing in the dirt, you would have just thought that was a bit crazy and it's just what children did. But these days, it's something that does have a movement behind it because of the lack of availability and experience that children have in this space. I'm just going to flick up a few things that come from the National Tree Day reports that are released annually around some of the figures around why nature play is a thing. And you can see that in these, the people were surveyed to look at what happened a generation ago and what's happening now. And it's statistics like looking at what children did, climbing trees, exploring nature. So you can see all of the green bars of what happened one generation ago and now what's happening right now. And nature play, the whole movement behind getting kids outside is to try and bridge that gap again and get children back out. So in terms of spaces, that's why we are seeing lots of lovely, natural settings for children, just to give them these basic experiences and then all the skills that flow on from that. So we're going to go, I'm just showing you a slide here of where do you think that might be? What kind of environment do you think that is? You were seeing the sticks and the teepee?
Looks like on a farm or a rural setting.
Looks like a scout camp or something.
That was my son's almost inner city primary school last year here in Adelaide.
Wow.
That was his reception classroom, believe it or not. So through all of their first year, this is the playground, but this is also where the reception's classroom is. You can see there's a sand pit in the middle. That's where they did their handwriting and wrote in the sand. All of these little teepee sticks, they would use that they would sit inside and do storytelling. The teepee was their cover in the rain, and this was in the Adelaide Hills, so it does get quite wet and quite cold, but they go dressed ready for whatever the day brings. So at the end of that year, they moved to a school closer to home, and his reflections were when I said, look, the playground will be very different. You won't have the same kind of playground or classroom at your new school. And at the age of 6, he said to me, Mum, he said, I know, it's the new playground, or the school's playground that was just a metal playground. He said, the metal kind of tells you how to play, but when you play with the wood, you create your own play. And they were his words. The metal tells you how to play, with the wood, you create your own play. And he was 5, had just turned 6. So that ability to give children a space where they create their own narrative, their own story, their own play, is the real power in an outdoor learning environment where it's really open-ended for teaching, for learning, and for social kind of construct and play for children. You can see that's mostly reclaimed bits and pieces of resources over time. There's nothing fancy or high-end kind of that space. The teepee most definitely was a beautiful big purchase from the school there. So to start us off, what I'd like, and so we know kind of the differences between playgrounds, flick over that. To start us off, I'm going straight through into a warm-up activity for us. The space you're in. Now, this is something I did with my year 6s a couple of years ago, and we would do this every day after lunch, and we would see how many rounds we'd get of the circle before we ran out of ideas. I'd like everyone to go and find one twig or stick or something in that space around them. And I'll show you from my end what you're going to do with that stick. Bruce, I'm going to get you to play this game with me, interstate version. So I'm holding a stick. So I have a stick, but today this is not a stick. This is not a stick, it's my pencil. Right, Bruce, if this was not a stick, what else could it be?
It's got a little bit that looks like off a whale on the back there. Look, it could be that little part there looks like the fin of a whale. So it could
It's
be
a whale.
stick.
Yeah. And today this is not a stick, it's my hat because it's quite sunny outside. Now what I'd like you all to do is to go and collect a stick. It can be a tiny twig, can be a bigger stick, and bring it back to where you are and see if you can have a think about what your stick could be if it's not a stick. Now, when you do this with children and with adults, there is no wrong answer. And that's one of the powerful things about the teaching and learning outdoors. Often there is no wrong answer, and children are much more likely to take risks with putting ideas forward and having a say. So can you all go for a walk? I'll give you 1 minute to go for a wander, find a stick and bring it back to your space. Off you go.
Couple of options.
Looks like we have a few sticks there. So if you have a stick, can you hold it up in front of the screen so that we can all see it? Can you tell us what your stick could be if it wasn't a stick? Bruce, you've got a stick in your hand. You can go first. If this is not a stick, what could that be?
I thought it could be an antenna for a television, but that's a pretty old school antenna.
we're on to you. What do you have there?
This is not a stick. This is a tail.
Very good, thank you. And Grace.
This is not a stick. It's an earring.
Fantastic, thank you.
This is not a stick. This is a tree.
Thank you, Lucy.
This is not a stick, it's a lion taming whip. Can you hear that?
Fantastic. Yuki.
On the road, on a journey to find something exciting.
Mary.
This is not a stick. It's a stick.
Fantastic. Now hold on to your sticks. You might need them later. Now, if you were using if you're going for a walk with an upper primary class and we're looking at angles and we're looking at, you can use just that stick. You could use that stick and look at finding what is an acute angle, what is an obtuse angle, where have I got a right angle. Can you have a look at your stick now and see if you can see a right angle or the closest thing to a right angle in it? Or what kind of angle you might identify? Going for a hunt for right angles in nature is a really good thing to do, because if you're near a tree right now, or actually wherever you are, have a look around you and see if you can see something in your natural environment that might be the closest thing that you can get to a right angle. And I do this even with young children, looking at using using your hand and looking at the shape of an L. See if you can go for a little walk, have a look around you and see if you can find something that is the closest thing to a right angle wall.
All right, I don't have a
It's
look.
actually correct.
And that is one of the most, the next steps in an activity like that is to actually create your own right angle with some sticks and then use that as your check measure to walk around and look for one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
If you are at a place where you've got one, you can stay there. You don't have to come back. You can your camera can show us where you are.
Yeah, that's a good point. People can wander off in this exercise. They don't necessarily have to
No, they can
come back. Everyone can kind of share from where they are.
So, Amy, as you're walking around, can you share with us what you're seeing around you? We're kind of just going to be roaming and sharing our thoughts as we go.
Yeah, so I'm looking at all the trees and I'm looking at the way that the branches are joining on to the trunk of the tree, and that's giving me a right angle. So if I come over here, I can, there's one that I've spotted here, which is a pretty good one. So I'll spin you around and see if you can see it.
Ah, fantastic. Good work. And we often talk to children about fractals in nature, you know, where you've got a pattern like the tree branch, and then you've got that branches off, and then there's another tree branch, and the pattern's kind of, it's a repeating pattern. But when you talk about patterning, often it's, you know, a colour pattern or a size pattern. For younger children, it's repeated, but using nature to look at fractals and all different kinds of patterns, and Fibonacci takes patterning to a whole other level. There's some beautiful trees behind you.
Yes.
Anyone else near, how about Melody? If we unmute.
Well, I found some of, I was looking these ridges in this palm tree. See how it's got the straight there? It's very subtle, and then it goes across there. So every single one of those is kind of pretty close to a right angle.
Fantastic. I love how you've really honed in on the detail and the tiniest detail, which often an empty cardboard frame. I use those with children, and we just use the cardboard frames with a whole, look like it to make a TV kind of screen as a nature television, and just go and sit in front of a spot like that to just look at the detail in the small spaces.
Awesome. And look, here's another one in these leaves, almost. See here?
Thank you.
So just here, there is a right angle on that tree.
Another great idea I have seen, and often these ideas come from lots of different places, is to draw an angle on a child's hand. To get them to draw an angle, it might be all different, 20 odd different angles and different hands, and then go out and look for all of them and then record those. So any one little thing can be turned into a very big kind of inquiry in your environment using. So having spaces that have lots of interest in different trees and things at different levels provide a great platform for that kind of discovery. That all came out of just from our little stick. So some of these things I'm going to flick over. So like in a classroom, we'll do the things that kind of really connect with. So now what I'd like you to do is another practical activity where I'd like you to go and collect 3 things. So 3 things that fit in the palm of your hand, something that catches your eye, something that's interesting, and just sit down in any space with them. We can all share via our phones, so you don't have to be near each other. But could you please go and just go for a little walk, collect 3 things, and hold on to those 3, and then just give me a thumbs up when you're ready.
Got some seeds. I've got some lemon balm leaves because they smell really good, and some lavender as well. So they're my 3 things. Go and sit down and show them.
Amy, can you have a look at your 3 things and tell us something that is similar, something that is the same in all 3?
My 3 things. I guess they've all got a bit of a curve on them. Like this one here. Well, where's my camera? They've all got like a little bit of a curve. Each one is curvy.
Fantastic, thank you. And I wonder if you, Kit, could you tell us something that is the same in your 3?
Let me see. Whoops. I'll just put them down here. So I've got a lavender flower. I've got a little seed head from a celery or a parsley. And then this lovely lemon balm. And I think the thing about them is that they're all a little bit furry, and they also have a little bit of a glint and a shine in the sun.
Thank you. I know that if I was working with a group of students and they were giving me those kinds of words to describe things, I'd be going, yes, we've hit the mark of some lovely descriptive language. Now here's your challenge. Using your 3 things, I want you to come up, put the 3 of them together to create some little story, a thing, perhaps, an item. And I want you to give it a name. And then your name has to be made up of 4 words. The first word can be my or the. So the, something, something, something. So I'm actually going to share with you, before we do this, this is a year 1 class that did something very similar with me, and look at what they came up with doing something like this. Just trying. So, collecting a few items, a group of 6 and 7-year-old children, and they had my fancy chicken cuts, my fantastic fairy hat, my smooth sculpture, my beautiful cookie purse. So can you think about using your items and creating something creative with them and giving it a name that you're going to share?
Hold on. Oh, maybe I put it over here.
All right. You've got 1 minute to come up with a name. See if you can think of putting an adjective, describing it in there. Off you go. Creature, could be a room, could be something make-believe. I love the detail I can see in what Melody's creating there. Oh, that now. Whose is that there? That's looking. Now, I doesn't have the name on the screen.
Oh, that's mine. That might be mine with the
Oh, there you
green.
go. Yep, that's yours. What would you call that, Bruce? What name did you give it?
That's my submarine.
Ah, fantastic. Melody, can you share the name of yours, what you've written there?
I can. I was just changing the name.
Ah,
At first, I was going to call it my cupcake decoration because I imagined you could put it on top of a cupcake. And then when the wind started blowing and knocking my flower around, I decided it was a weather vane. But either will do.
Mine's the crystal forest.
Ooh.
The colours in these are lovely. Grace, I've just unmuted you.
My little brown snowman. Can you see?
Oh, there we can. Yes, now we can. My little brown snowman. Beautiful. Thank you. Mary, what do you have there?
I've got a little topsy-turvy person with an umbrella.
Topsy-turvy land. It's lovely. Thank you. And Yuki, what did you make with your three beautiful items?
Mine is a picnic for one.
Now, each of these could then become such a big story that, and that's through without collecting resources, without having to prepare anything. It's just helping teachers get into the frame of thinking that outdoor environment has potential for lots of work to support the learning. Now, to just keep going with the idea of thinking about language, I'd like you to go for a walk and find a tree. When you find a tree, this is what you need to do. I want you to touch the tree with your hands, but then also the back, so the palm of your hand, the back of your hand, your cheek, your forehead. Try different, even the back of your neck if you can. So find a tree you're happy to get up close and personal with, and I want you to write 10 words of what that felt like, of how you could describe that tree.
Maybe this little one. So the bottom here is, I'm noticing that it's very dry and crumbly. And then on the back of my hand further up, it's quite smooth. It's a little bit sharp and pointy wherever there's some branches coming off. And the leaves are, they're almost silky.
Slightly scabby and lumpy and wrinkly. It's all sort of dripped down to the bottom, and it's also smooth in places.
There's a lot there, thank you. Tell us about that tree.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, this tree. Can you see it?
It caught my eye, yes.
So some of the words I came up with, it's textured, it's porous, it's also fragile and gnarled, and it's knobbly, and it's spindly in spots. And it's quite reminiscent of what you'd imagine the texture of an elephant's skin to be like.
Fantastic. Using that in a teaching learning context, you'd be looking at metaphor and taking that in so many different ways. Look at that, it does. You could see an elephant's eye. Oh, beautiful.
This is my tree. I think it's very raspy, but also there's lots of wrinkles in it, like skin.
Having lots of different different types of trees and shrubs in a schoolyard to do just lots of different things like this is a great opportunity. You go and pick yourself, or either off the ground or on a tree, and grab a leaf. And if are we allowed to pick a leaf off the tree? Is that part of an accepted nature code for us right now on the site? So if it is, if you could all pick one leaf and rub that leaf in your hand so that you can smell it and feel it kind of with a bit of movement and warmth on it. And then see if you can write 10 words that describe that leaf, what it feels like, what it smells like, what it looks like. How about Amy Louise? Would you be able to share a couple of words of what you have from a leaf?
Yeah, of course. It's oh, it's sharp. It's reminding me of oh, there's lemon there, and there's also a little bit camphory. It reminds me of you know, insect repellent. I don't know what herb I'm smelling. I'm mostly going to get in trouble for getting this wrong, but to me, it just reminds me of spraying myself to stop the mosquitoes biting me as a child.
And if you were a, you know, well, not a child, but even an adult, if someone came and confirmed with you that actually it was, what a great aha moment of kind of going, I knew it. And, you know, kids get really excited about that. The questioning and the wondering is really the spark, the magic in that space of kind of going, I actually don't know the answer, but I think, or I'm wondering is the light bulb moment, I think, with children.
Yeah, and also that connection between the sense of smell and memory.
Yes, yes. And often, you know, there's two brothers in America, Chip and Dan Heath, whose life work is about how to make ideas stick. And they talk about teaching that sticks. And one of the things they have as a pivotal point is anchoring things to memory. So learning experiences to memory, and memory and smell go hand in hand. So anchoring experiences in something sensory is just a kind of a great way to have something else serve your purpose to make something stick. Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. How about Yuki? Would you like to be able to share your leaf?
Yeah, so mine is actually an ornamental pear leaf. When I smell it, it's a really hard smell to describe, but I thought words like tangy and acrid and also a little bit sweet were the words that came to mind when I rubbed my leaf.
Fantastic. I wonder about the science. You know, I have a primary teaching background and would love to know a lot more about that grows in my local area. But you know, often in our park here, we're in a botanic gardens, and if we go, I've gone for a walk with Trent Hill, who is our Aboriginal education teacher in gardens, and every sector he's pointing to is something you can make tea from. I wonder about those leaves and what happens if they were in water and hot water, and what smells they would give off, or if you could use them for other purposes. Does anyone know the answer? Anyone who's at school site there know what, or would anyone else what Amy may have been smelling that had that smell of insect repellent?
So the plant that I think she was smelling is called citronella.
Oh,
Pelargonium family, and it's what they use for insect repellent.
And they and often for children too, they don't see the link between where these things come from. And you know, we've got something here in the office that Nara gives me, the fever view. It's when you have a headache, you know, kind of, I don't know the name of the plant, but it smells like, you can smell the the kind of, it smells like Panadol. All right, I'm going
Does it have yellow flowers, like white and yellow flowers? It's probably feverfew.
Feverfew, that's the one. Yes.
Yeah.
Mine, I had it as an indoor plant. It didn't last terribly long, so never got to the flowers.
Yeah, if you can grow it outside, then it naturalizes pretty easily. It's a pretty hardy one once you get it established.
Yeah. Oh, I'll just give it another go. I loved it.
Yeah, the birds and the butterflies love them too.
Oh,
So they're a really good companion plant in the garden.
and that's it's that kind of knowledge that, you know, children, when my children come home from school with things to plant and knowing things, they love knowing stuff, you know, really interesting, useful, and even just, you know, like as an adult learning something new, kind of going, actually I never knew that, but now I do. And it you know, the smallest bits of knowledge that come from a wondering are really powerful in a teaching and learning environment. We won't go for too much longer, but just in kind of wrapping up, I'm actually going to share one more slide, which is a list of things that are on a scavenger hunt list. Now, there's the theory of affordances, which talks about the more time you spend in it, the affordances of knowing what to do when you see something. So the theory of affordances would state that you know a doorknob turns, and you know that when you see a pump, hand sanitizer bottle here, you know what to do with that. When you see that, you press. Children these days are developing all these affordances that we never knew 20 years ago of when you see a screen, you press the button. When you're outdoors with children, the more time you spend in that space, or as adults, the more you learn as a natural kind of reflex almost. You know what to do in that space. So if you're a keen gardener and you walk into your patch, you know how to spend a whole day there, hands down. No one needs to kind of give you a list of this is what you do. If you're a teacher who uses your outdoor environment every day, the list of things you would naturally walk out and do just grows and grows. But it's developing that skill, going into a space and going, well, let's just start with writing some descriptive words, and let's start with some poetry, and then maybe we'll have a look at some angles, and then kind of going, because then the learning will come from there, the next thing. So to finish up with, I'm going to show you a scavenger hunt list from this, the last page of this PowerPoint. So have a look at what's on that list. Now, in reflection, in review of today, so I've got a sunset coloured leaf, a wand for a fairy, a chewed leaf, an interesting piece of bark, a seed pod or nut, 4 different shaped leaves, a magical pebble or stone, a crown or a hat for a small frog, 3 different kinds of tiny flowers, a feather the colour of your eyes, and something you think is special. Now, you don't need to find all of those, but if you could just have a look at that list and write down maybe 3 or 4, and then go for a walk around and find those things. At the start of our session, you would have collected them and perhaps not really known about what you could do with them. But I want you to collect them and then think of one thing you could do with that thing. What could you do with a wand for a fairy? And if you're not a teacher, I'm going to make a big leap here and see if you can think of something that you could do with a group of children. You had that thing. Seed pod, a magical pebble. What could it be the inspiration for? So off you go collecting 3 or 4 things, and then we'll all share our ideas at the end. So if you're happy to spread out over the grounds, and that's the lovely thing about the idea of returning to school too, that we're trying to support South Australian schools with, is it's impossible to socially distance inside a classroom with 30 children in one classroom. They were never designed and don't have that much space. But using an outdoor environment was actually part of the federal government's social distancing advice for schools was teach outdoors whenever possible. In South Australia, we have seen a sharp increase of people using, public spaces and getting into national parks and it's been a great silver lining.
Fantastic.
So if everyone's happy to share at the end, can you just share one of the things you collected and then how you might use that for something creative or storytelling or with a group of children or for some teaching or anything, just a reflection on something that you collected in that last little wrap up.
So I've got a nasturtium flower, and for me that was a crown or a hat for a little frog or a creature. I also found this amazing yellow stainer toadstool, and so that was my something special. This is a really important thing to teach the kids, is to be wary of any sort of mushrooms, but particularly to use this scratch technique. If you scratch a mushroom and it goes bright yellow, then that's one of the dangerous ones. So never to eat those. I have these tiny little marjoram flowers. So when I'm out in the classroom, we talk about how important it is to give the bees and the other beneficial insects something good to drink and eat. And so our little flowers like this are so important. So we plant a lot of these in the kitchen garden, but we also talk about how nectar and pollen sources are so important. And then this is the last one. This is a chewed horseradish leaf. And I saw some lovely snails and slugs in amongst them too. So they've been having their fair share. And with the slugs and the snails and the other pests, we talk about how those little insects and creatures are actually food for the bigger animals like our tawny frogmouths. And so how everything has its place and is part of the cycle.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much. Learning so much. That I've seen leaves like that just put up with the sunlight coming through, and then kind of drawings made and kind of outlines of the leftover, the patterns on the ground.
Yeah,
Oh,
lovely.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
So I collected a little tiny hat for a fairy. And I was thinking about that mostly because we're doing narratives this week with the kids, and we're also doing fairy tales. So I thought we could get the kids to create like their own tiny things to add a bit more imagination and mysteriousness into their fairy tales, so they're not just a stock standard, there's a princess, this is what they wear. So their clothing would have to come out of nature, so maybe like the golden leaf would be a dress, their bark could be part of their house.
Fantastic, thank you. And often one of the things that you can do with, if you're looking at storytelling as well, is just using those items and just saying, right, you have to make up a story that has all of these things, but they could be something creative. Just the art of telling a story. What beautiful colours. The nice thing about using things from outside too is that during break time, you often find children bringing things back in to share their stories from things that they've done during their kind of unstructured time, which is, like the golden ticket, if you can get them, adding to the learning when they're out playing. Melody.
I got my 4 different leaves here, all very different shapes. And I thought that, well, I mean, maybe it's a bit obvious, but for botany, teaching about plants, I've got this really cute little one for a frog. It's bumpy. See, it looks like a honeycomb or something. But this is my favourite. This one here, something special because it looks like a little face. I don't know if you can tell. It's got like little eyes and a mouth, and I thought that would be quite cute to make, little people and storytelling about it.
Lovely, thank you for the details. I love the looking closely is such an art. Amy.
Hey. Well, I've got a couple of things here. I've got a leaf, and can you see that?
Yes.
A leaf, and I've drawn a little picture of, I'd get kids to imagine what they think could have eaten the leaf, creating their own sort of little creature, which could then be a start of, something else. I've also got, I always forget what these are called.
Dandelions.
Dandelions, that's it. So a dandelion, you could do like a bit of a maths lesson with this, like they could blow it, and then they could have to write what the time is after how many blows. Is it an o'clock where it finishes out of 3 blows and it's gone, or is it a quarter past, or is it a half past because there's still a few little seeds left? So I thought that could be a fun idea as well, taking it that next level where they have to write it down. And the magic drop of the rock could mean that everybody freezes. Just to get that refocus happening. And so, see how quickly everybody could be paying attention to see when the rock drops throughout the day.
Fantastic. And some of those things that you start as just a part of your routines, and that's so clever to build some fun, playful routines into kind of going, well, in a classroom, this is how we tune in and listen, but this is how we do it outside. But having the boundaries there saying we still all need to agree to be doing these things, we can just tune in differently. the element of surprise too is lovely, because no one would expect that. That you'd have buy-in from the students really quickly, just waiting for it. So we'll finish up there. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you in person if at another time. And Yuki, thank you for teaching me today. I could have sat and listened all day long. Like I'm in
It's so fabulous to do this with you, and I've learnt a lot, and I'm excited about including angles of branches and lots of different things into my lessons now.
Thank you everyone. Enjoy your little collection of treasures. Thanks for helping out today and for joining in. Everybody have a great afternoon.
Yeah, bye.
Oh, it's a lot to take in really, but I guess very reaffirming of what we do in the Kitchen Garden program here. Just to see that, yeah, the natural environment can get kids really excited about learning, and if you can, yeah, manage to take what they need to learn and find ways to explore that just with the trees and the garden and the plants, yeah. I think it has a capacity to be easier to learn, but also to stay in their minds more. Because a lot of what we do in the Kitchen Garden is just common sense and hands-on, what's really nice is that the children will take that learning back and they'll show their parents, and their parents will get engaged with it too. And so it's that learning about something through doing, but then also reinforcing it through the teaching of somebody else, sharing that knowledge. So I find that that's one of the most powerful things about the Kitchen Garden and the way that we teach in the Kitchen Garden, using the outdoor environment like that.